Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fill the Glass episode 14. 14 straight weeks of doing this, and so far, so good, I guess. Today, I'm going to talk about the dangers of sampled data. Had a conversation with one of the audience members last week that made me believe that this might be an interesting thing to talk about for a little bit. So, this is what we're going to talk about for a little bit. Let's imagine that you're cooking dinner and you need milk. So you need for your child to run to the store. Let's imagine it's a boy that needs to run to the store on his bike, grab some milk, come back, be back in time for dinner. And let's imagine that that took way too long. It started at 7 o'clock and it should have taken about a half an hour, but it took a whole hour. And you start doing a little investigating and you find out from one of your neighbors who at 7:05 was going out to retrieve a package off her porch. She saw your son actually chatting, flirting with Mary Sue, who lives across the street from your neighbor. So she saw this at 7:05. She's a meticulous timekeeper, as it turns out. And then she told you at 7:30, she saw him still doing that as she went out to take her garbage to the curb for the trash pickup the next morning. So, of course, the implication here, seeing these two sample data points, is that your son spent 25 minutes chatting when your son should have been spending that time on the road getting the milk back on time. Well, here's the thing, though. The assumption is that the trip must have looked something like this. 7 o'clock, you left home. You know that. 7:05, you have intel from the neighbors saying he was chatting. So that goes on the timeline. 7:05, chat. You might assume that at 7:35 that the 7:05 and 7:30 chatting samples were part of one chatting session. So it's easy to imagine that your son chatted from 7:05 until 7:35, went to the store. It takes about 5 minutes to get to the store from Mary Sue's house, buys milk. That takes about 10 minutes, leaves the store, gets home at 8 o'clock. In this scenario, the chatting took 50% of the time. It took 30 extra minutes. And you need that 30 extra minutes because dinner was late because the milk wasn't there on time. So it's a serious performance problem. And the presumption is, the implication of the sample data is that your son spent half the time chatting with Mary Sue. So your son's in big trouble. The data says so. Well, the problem with this story is there's not just one scenario that fits the sample data. Here's another scenario that also fits the sample data. Leave home at 7 o'clock, 7:05, get caught chatting, fine. 7:10, he could have gone to the store. 7:15, buy the milk. 7:25, leave the store. All those times are the same on the right. The durations are the same on the right as they are in scenario one. And then at 7:30, when he got caught chatting, he was chatting. And then at 7:35, started on his way home. And at 7:36, witnessed a car accident and held there to do something completely unexpected. Could have been a flat tire, could have been a dog was lost and he was helping take it back to its owner's house. Could have been anything. But scenario two could have happened. It fits the data just like scenario one does. Now, we can have fun with coming up with scenarios, and we can come up with some preposterous ones and some fairly straightforward and logical ones. But the problem is the data doesn't prove that your son wasted 30 minutes chatting. It could have proven that he only wasted 10 minutes chatting, and it could have been less than that. Now, the probabilities start to weigh in and say, well, if he was caught chatting at 7:05 and 7:30, if the chatting windows were really small in time, then it's probably very unlikely that was what happened to cause the data to look like the data looks. But fundamentally, whenever the data you see can be explained by two or more different situations, then you either have to start guessing or you need more data. So what's wrong with probabilities? There's all sorts of math that I know some friends within Oracle, I know their names, did when ASH was invented, when active session history was invented. And active session history polls every second to see what sessions in Oracle are doing. And some friends whose names I know, as I said, did the math and, prove that, well, here's the likelihood that even if we don't know what's going on in between 1 second pulls, we can say what probably has happened. So what's wrong with saying what probably happened? Well, it depends on your risk profile, the stakes involved, your reputation, and so on. See, usually when I go someplace, I'm not the first person to go visit a place. Usually by the time people hear of my tiny little company and me, things are completely roasted. We talked a couple of weeks ago in the calm session about how one of the jobs that I have to have front of my mind is let's get folks calmed down. And then you remember one of the things that I said I have to do in this role of firefighting performance problems is come up with a process that people trust is going to provide them relief. Well, gassing is not such a process. And there are situations where you think, okay, it's not very likely that there was an accident that slowed my son down. It's more likely that he spent 30 minutes chatting. Well, fine. But what if people before you have already pursued all the easy routes and you're left with, wow, something weird must have happened here, or we wouldn't have this problem that nobody can solve. So my view of the world is sort of filtered. I don't see all the problems that people have, including the simple ones. I only see the hard ones. And by the time I get there, sample data is often not enough. Fill the Glass is a podcast that I record live every week, Tuesday at 10:30 Central US time. If you're interested in joining our live audience, we've got nice discussions before and after the show that you might enjoy. Then hit us at methodr.com/subscribe. That will put you on our newsletter where we can notify you of the weekly Fill the Glass episodes and anything else that happens to be going on. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.